Let me ask you something you've probably never said out loud. Have you ever won an argument by lying just a little? Have you ever smiled while thinking something cruel? Given a compliment just to gain favor? Held back the truth because it would cost you something? Now pause. Don't justify it. Don't explain it away. Just sit with that. Because what if I told you that you've already played the game of manipulation? Not because you're evil, not because you're cruel, but because you're human, and deep down, all of us are. We don't like to admit it. We prefer the story that we're good, honest, noble. But in the quiet moments, the ones no one sees, we all reach for tools. We pretend we don't know how to use. Tools Machiavelli described over 500 years ago. Tools of influence, control, persuasion, tools that the world now uses casually, often unconsciously, yet denies with absolute certainty. This isn't a video about how to manipulate others. This is a mirror, a slow descent into the psychological underworld where our masks fall away, where we confront the tactics everyone uses, even the ones we refuse to see in ourselves, because if you don't understand the game, you'll always be the one getting played. So stay close, because by the end of this video, you won't just see how these tactics operate. You'll start to feel them in conversations, in relationships, in society, and most importantly, in yourself. Let's begin. Tactic 1: the mask of morality. Machiavelli once wrote something few dare repeat. It is necessary to be a great pretender and dissembler. In other words, the most powerful people don't wear power. They wear morality. They appear virtuous, kind, righteous. They preach honesty, fairness, justice, but only because that image is useful. We want to believe leaders are good people. So the clever ones pretend to be. Here's the paradox: pretending to be good is often the fastest way to get ahead. Think about it. Who do we trust? The friendly manager who cares about the team, or the brutally honest one who exposes flaws? Who gets promoted? The charming politician who says all the right things, or the one who tells the truth that no one wants to hear? The truth is, many people weaponize kindness, not because they're malicious, but because it works. They smile to deflect suspicion. They offer help to collect favors. They feign vulnerability to earn loyalty. And here's the uncomfortable part. You've done it too. Maybe not on purpose, maybe not with evil intent, but you've worn the mask when it served you. We all have. Because somewhere along the way, we learned. People don't reward truth. They reward appearances. Machiavelli didn't say this to corrupt you. He said it to wake you up. If you don't recognize the mask, you'll confuse performance with character. I once had a friend, charming, warm, always saying the right things. People loved him. I did too, until one day I watched him lie, effortlessly, casually, with a soft voice and a smile that made it sound like kindness. It hit me like a wave. The warmth wasn't real. It was a tactic. Not because he was evil, but because he learned that being nice was more effective than being honest. That's when I realized manipulation isn't loud. It doesn't feel evil. It often feels like love. That's what makes it dangerous. Tactic 2: the illusion of choice. Here's another mind-bender. You think you're choosing, but most of the time, your choices are chosen for you. This is one of Machiavelli's deepest insights. He understood that power isn't just in force, it's in framing, in making people believe they're free while gently guiding their decisions. Think of a salesperson. They don't say, "Do you want to buy this?" They say, "Would you like the silver or gold package?" It feels like a choice, but it's not. The real decision whether to buy was never offered. You were only given the illusion of control. This shows up in politics, in media, in relationships. You're not asked what you want. You're asked to choose between options already selected for you, and we fall for it over and over again. Because humans don't like chaos. We crave certainty, structure, even if it's an illusion. And here's where it gets personal. You've probably used this tactic too. Have you ever offered someone a choice? That wasn't really a choice, maybe as a parent, a boss, or a partner. Something like, you can go to bed now, or in 5 minutes. That's not freedom, that's framing. And it works, because it makes people feel in control, while you stay in command. Tactic 3, the seed of doubt. Machiavelli understood one powerful truth. You don't need to destroy your enemies. You just need to make people doubt them. This is the tactic of whispers, a subtle comment, a raised eyebrow, a question phrased just right. Instead of saying, "Don't trust her," you say, "Isn't it strange how she always gets praised?" And suddenly, a seed is planted, one that grows in silence, one that needs no evidence, only suggestion. We do this far more than we admit. We plant seeds of doubt in co-workers, friends, rivals. Not because we're monsters, but because it gives us power without confrontation. This tactic is dangerous because it hides behind plausible deniability. I never said that. I was just wondering. You're reading too much into it, but deep down we know what we're doing. We're shifting perception. And in today's world, where attention is currency and reputation is fragile, one whisper can do more damage than 1,000 truths. And yet, you've probably done it, not to ruin someone, but maybe just to tilt the scale. We all have, because in a world built on perception, sometimes doubt is the deadliest weapon. Let's pause here. I know this isn't easy to hear. These tactics, they're not just strategies. They're shadows, reflections of the parts we hide. And maybe right now you're seeing things in yourself that you never wanted to. But that's the beginning of power. Not the manipulative kind, but the kind that comes from self-honesty. If this journey is opening your eyes, even just a little, let it sink in. Let it sit in the quiet corners of your mind. And if this voice, my voice, feels like something you want more of, then let's keep walking together. You can like, you can comment, you can subscribe. Not because I asked, but because something inside you remembers what it feels like to hear the truth, spoken gently but unapologetically. We're only just beginning. Tactic 4, reciprocity rewired. Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. Machiavelli. Let's talk about one of the most beautiful forces in human nature and how it's been quietly weaponized. Reciprocity, the simple idea that when someone gives us something, we feel compelled to give something back. It's the glue of civilization, the foundation of friendship, love, trust, and cooperation. And yet, it's also the softest form of manipulation in existence, because when someone gives you a gift, when they go out of their way to help, flatter, support, surprise, you don't just feel gratitude, you feel debt. And debt, psychologically speaking, is a heavy thing. We're wired to repay kindness, to return favors, to match gestures. But what happens when the kindness wasn't pure? What if that compliment was a down payment? What if that favor came with invisible strings? This is what Machiavelli understood. People don't notice manipulation when it feels like generosity. You've probably experienced this. Someone does something for you, and later they ask for something back. You hesitate, and they say, "After everything I've done for you," and suddenly you feel guilty. You feel like the bad guy, but stop for a moment. Did you ask for what they gave, or did they give it, knowing it would buy leverage? Reciprocity can be beautiful, but it can also be engineered. It can be used to trap, guilt, and control, not through threat, but through kindness. And the hardest part? We've all used it. We've all done something for someone, not just out of love, but because we wanted something in return. A thank you, loyalty, obedience, validation. It doesn't make you evil, it makes you human. But if you're not aware of this tendency, you'll either fall for it or abuse it, and neither leads to real connection. Tactic 5, the weapon of weakness. Now this one is almost invisible because it hides behind tears. It hides behind trembling voices and wounded hearts. And when done right, it doesn't look like manipulation at all. It looks like vulnerability. Machiavelli didn't write much about this directly, but his teachings apply to it nonetheless. A prince must learn how not to be good and to use this knowledge, or not according to necessity. In other words, when it's useful, play weak. Let them underestimate you. Let them feel sorry for you. Let them believe they have the upper hand, because when people think you're weak, they let their guard down. They reveal more, they speak freely, they offer support, advice, protection, and in that moment, you have power without seeming powerful. This tactic is especially dangerous because it feels moral. We're taught to comfort the weak, to defend the vulnerable, to protect the wounded, and we should. But what happens when weakness is a mask? What happens when someone plays broken just to avoid responsibility, just to gain sympathy, just to manipulate your kindness into obedience? You've seen this, the co-worker who always has something going on to avoid accountability, the partner who cries when confronted, not from pain, but to derail the truth, the person who always needs your help, but never helps back. And here's the twist. You may have done it too. Faked helplessness, amplified emotion, played the victim. Because it felt easier than being honest. It doesn't make you a monster. It means you learned that people often say yes to weakness faster than they say yes to strength. But true strength is owning that tendency, seeing it, naming it, choosing not to use it, because every time you weaponize weakness, you erode the trust that real vulnerability requires. Tactic 6. Scarcity and the fear of loss. There's a fear inside every human being that transcends time, status, culture. The fear of missing out. Machiavelli understood this well. He knew men more quickly forget the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance. That sounds brutal. But think about what it reveals. People fear loss more than they value gain. That's why scarcity is such a powerful tool. When something feels limited, we want it more. When someone becomes distant, we chase them harder. When an opportunity feels exclusive, we fight to be chosen. Scarcity taps into our survival instincts, because in the wild, scarcity meant death, food, shelter, mates, resources. So today, even when our lives aren't in danger, that instinct still drives us. It's why marketers use phrases like, only 3 left, 24 hours only, limited edition. It's why people play hard to get, why they disappear just long enough to make you miss them, why they withhold attention to create desire. Scarcity creates urgency, and urgency overrides logic. Now ask yourself honestly, have you ever done this? Have you ever made yourself seem less available, less interested, more exclusive, just to increase your value in someone else's eyes? If you have, you've used scarcity, not necessarily to hurt, not even to manipulate in a cruel way, but to increase leverage. And the truth is, we all do this in different ways. We don't respond to text right away. We act aloof to avoid seeming needy. We make others work for our attention, just a little, because somewhere we learned what feels rare feels valuable. And here's where the conflict begins. When you understand how these tactics work, you start seeing them everywhere. In your relationships, in your workplace, in your own behavior, and it becomes harder to trust, harder to speak plainly, harder to look in the mirror and not wonder, am I being real or am I playing a role? That's the cost of awareness, but it's also the beginning of transformation, because until you see the strings, you're just a puppet. But once you see them, you can choose. You can choose not to use these tactics, or you can choose to use them consciously, with integrity, with intention, with clarity, not to deceive, but to protect, not to control, but to understand. Because these tactics, they don't make you a monster. They make you human, and it's only when we confront the darkness in ourselves that we begin to walk in the light. Tactic 7. The strategic disappearance. There's something haunting about silence, something heavy, unpredictable, uncontrollable, and that's exactly what makes it so powerful. Machiavelli never wrote a chapter titled "Disappear to Gain Power," but his philosophy whispers it all. The same, it is much safer to be feared than loved, because when someone disappears, even briefly, fear creeps in, not terror. Not panic, but uncertainty, and uncertainties is power. We see it in relationships. You stop texting, you pull back, you vanish, just a little. And suddenly the other person is thinking about you more than ever. They wonder what happened, what they did wrong, why your presence, once constant, is now gone. This is the essence of strategic disappearance. It creates voids that people rush to fill with meaning, with emotion, with attachment. Absence becomes influence, because when you're gone, you're not just a person anymore. You become a symbol, a mystery, an unanswered question, and the human brain hates unanswered questions. We crave closure, clarity, resolution. So, we chase the ones who create confusion. We obsess over the ones who leave gaps. This tactic is used by powerful people every day. The boss who never gives full approval, keeping you on edge. The influencer who vanishes from social media, making their return explosive. The friend who stops replying just long enough for you to need their attention again. Even you might have done it. Gone quiet to teach a lesson, pulled away to be valued more, gone dark just to see who'd come looking. Again, that doesn't make you evil, it makes you strategic. But strategy comes with a cost. Every time you disappear, to be desired, you deepen someone's insecurity, you trigger their fear of abandonment, you make connection conditional, and over time, people learn not to trust your presence. Because love built on fear will never feel safe. So here we heard 7 tactics, 7 subtle psychological weapons, each used not just by the cunning and the corrupt, but by all of us. Let's pause for a moment. Let's breathe together. You, me, the truth between us. Because maybe right now, you're feeling a little shaken. Maybe you're seeing things you hadn't seen before in others, and in yourself. The compliments you gave with expectations. The times you stayed silent to stay in control. The moments you offered vulnerability not to connect, but to manipulate. You didn't mean to hurt anyone. You were surviving. You were adapting. You were protecting yourself in a world that doesn't always feel safe. But the question is, now that you see the tactics, who do you want to be? Because awareness is not enough. It must become intention. You can weaponize what you've learned, or you can humanize it. You can continue to move through life calculating every gesture, or you can begin showing up consciously, with eyes wide open, with a heart that chooses truth, even when it's terrifying. Because here's the deeper truth Machiavelli never told you. Manipulation may win the battle, but only authenticity wins the soul. You can control someone with fear. You can seduce with scarcity. You can dominate through silence. But none of it will ever feel like love. If this has stirred something in you, a recognition, a discomfort, maybe even a quiet awakening, I invite you to do one small thing. Not because I want something, but because this space we're creating, this space of honesty, of depth, of courage, deserves to grow. So if something here has made you feel seen, tap the like button, leave a thought in the comments, subscribe if you haven't yet. So this kind of truth finds its way back to you, not out of obligation, but out of shared humanity. Let's come back to the core question. Is it possible to walk through a manipulative world without becoming manipulative yourself? Machiavelli might say no. He'd argue that the world belongs to those who play the game, that naivety is punished, that softness is devoured. But you You have a different power, the power to know the game and still choose love, to see the manipulation and still choose truth, to feel the temptation to control and still choose trust, because real strength isn't in hiding your darkness, it's in owning it, looking it in the eye, understanding it, integrating it, so that it no longer controls you. You don't have to pretend anymore. You don't have to perform. You don't have to play weak to be worthy or play hard to be respected. You don't have to ghost people to be missed or flatter them to be loved. You can just be you, fully, imperfectly, honestly, and from that place, you will draw the kind of connection that no tactic can fake, the kind that lasts, the kind that liberates, the kind that feels like home, because when manipulation is no longer your reflex, you begin to lead instead of control, to inspire instead of influence, to attract instead of chase, and that is true power. If this message woke something up inside you, if it made you reflect, breathe deeper, or cry in silent recognition, then don't let it end here. Subscribe to this channel, not to follow me, but to keep following yourself. This is a place for truth, for reflection, for the kind of clarity the world tries to drown out, and if this resonated, pass it forward. Not because it's viral, but because it's vital. You never know who's silently being manipulated and desperately waiting for a voice to say, "You're not crazy, you're just waking up." You are not here to be small. You are not here to live confused, controlled, or conquered. You are here to remember who you are, to walk through every room with your eyes open, your spine straight, your heart intact. And if they ask you, "Why don't you play the game like the rest of us?" you'll smile gently and say, "Because I finally realized I'm not here to play, I'm here to live."